look at the question once again. So it's taking some time. Yeah, it is. This question. Share. Okay, that is the question that you could see now in your screens. Can you see the question? The battlefield of ancient times, a soldier with a catapult stationed on the top of a very high cliff notices camps of enemy close to the bottom of the cliff as shown. Stones can be launched from the catapult with a speed which has been given, and the angle is fixed actually. So if the air resistance reduces the speed of the stone at a rate of k, which is 0.1 meter per second per meter, that is quite interesting, and there is no wind, at what horizontal separation from the enemy camps, should the soldier install the catapult to hit the enemy camps? Now, see this question has been solved, I think, with Rahul, but there's a mistake that it has that's been done. In fact, I found that was a common mistake. I asked this question across in class 12 as well, and some persons they have done a very similar kind of solution, which has been provided in the group in this case. But that's a very interesting question actually. If we consider in a bit more detail, I mean, say not exactly the way that the solution is presented, which was simply to multiply the x component, I mean, multiply this k with the displacement along the x-axis and equated that to the initial x velocity. Instead of that, what is the actual solution? Actually, yes, but I'm stopping the sharing. How have you done that, Rahul? Can you explain what have you done? Just multiplied the x component. I mean, just taken the entire thing happening along the x-axis by the. Yes, some people still asking whether the class started. No. Okay, fine. Let's see. Yesterday I kind of looked at the entire thing. First of all, it requires a bit of calculus if you want to justify what you have done. Turns out the ultimate equation we are going to get is the same that you have got over there, Rahul. However, that still does not justify whatever done over there. The idea is what we have been given this case that the speed is being reduced per unit of meter actually. So for every meter it travels, the speed reduces by 0.1 meter per second. But then this travel has to be, I mean, we have to take that distance around the path actually, which is in fact not exactly parabola, but obviously. But the question says that the speed reduces along the path, okay? I mean, say per unit of meter. So if you just travel, I mean, say not along the horizontal displacement, but along the path, okay? However, in this case, if we look at this carefully, we have to use a bit of calculus in this case over there. If I consider, for example, the given information the given information says that it has to be minus of dv by ds actually. Not able to join. Shubhankar is not able to join. Why come? How come that happens by the? It is my problem or his problem? People have joined. Wait a moment. No, Shubhankar is not coming that way. Shubhankar is not able to. He is not yet able to join. Why is that happening by the way? Okay, nothing could be done, it seems. Has it joined? Shubhankar, are you there? No. No, it's not there. Where? Yes. It is not happening. Well, I don't know what to do. Asking to join coming. Why should I cancel it by? Let's see. Okay, so what I was saying is, if you look at this one carefully a bit, it requires a bit of calculus. I was saying, just for the justification. You might not copy it if you wish, but just look at the solution. See, first of all, what you've been given is that in this case, if I just take the path of the projectile, then along the path, the speed is reducing. Okay, this is our x axis, y axis. The idea is what? Because the enemy are located right down at the cliff over there, what we should want is that it should be thrown in such a way that by the time it reaches this particular kind of effectively it should reach, it will only be able to strike the enemy camps if, for example, by the time it reaches over here, its x velocity simply is gone. Okay, in which case it can just fall vertically, or I would say it has something like this, goes and then just almost drops down without any velocity. Only then it can strike it over there. Because as long as there is some x velocity coming up, there will be always certain amount of reduction in speed along that direction also. I mean, obviously in this case, the path is no longer going to be parabola actually, that we know. However, instead of, I mean, say, even if you don't copy it or don't, I mean, say, get it fully, it'll be interesting to look at the path. Okay, this because this gives us a very realistic situation. In this case, if I consider the given information, it says that okay, the velocity of the speed is v along the path. In that case, it says that the speed reduces for a distance along the path at a rate which is k, which is 0.1 meter per second per meter. So it's saying that as it travels along this path, which is ds. Ds is the path length along the curve, actually along the path over there. That gives us in this case a decrement in the speed, which is by an amount of k. This gives us, if I just kind of write down this way as minus dv equal to k into ds. ds is again a distance over there. Remember that it is not the x component. This, in fact, if I divide by the time, that gives us in this case dx by dt, but that is nothing but the speed itself. I get k into v. So very interestingly, it comes up with an acceleration. Not able to join. So why is not able to join? Not able to rejoin. Okay, just wait. I'm logging out and coming back in. Okay, just wait a moment. I'll log out and log back in. Well, I can do that. Anushka is not able to join. Why? He has some problem with the network or what? Yasa has joined back. Shvankar, what had happened by the way? You are unable to join. Why?
No, sir, I want to cancel. I want to cancel it, but the cancel option is not working.
Cancel. Why do you need to cancel?
Sir, when you told me the class has started, sir, then I went to the meeting and saw that it's now also going. They're asking to join, and the cancel option is coming still now. So that I thought that my I have some problem maybe. So that's why I want to cancel and want to join the meeting newly. That's why.
Okay. Asking to join is coming, but then uh, well, this problem is seemingly. We are actually talking about that question which has been asked in the group. Shvankar still unable to join. That's weird. Asking to join is coming, but then nothing happens. Okay, fine, Anushka. Well, I simply log out and rejoin in. What is Ankit? It just sorry, Onik. It happened quite quickly. Anyway, let us see. So what is turns out in this case is that this given information that the speed reduces by 1 meter per 0.1 meter per second per meter, it can actually give rise to an equation which is like this. Strictly speaking, if you consider this dv by dt, dv by dt is in fact the acceleration, but this is actually referred to as the tangential acceleration, which implies the acceleration along the tangent, the rate at which the speed reduces. Okay, now the speed, you see that whenever you have an acceleration which is parallel to the velocity, or at least in that direction, only that part can reduce the speed. We shall see later on that if say if there is some acceleration which is perpendicular to the velocity, then such an acceleration cannot change the speed. Okay. In fact, that's true for any kind of vector, by the way. If we have a vector whose rate of change is perpendicular to the original vector, In that case, the given vector must be of uniform length. The length cannot change. In similar fashion, uh, Shubham, what are you asking about? Is that for Onik or for me? Okay,
So I
chat.
think he's telling about minus sign.
Oh,
Maybe I don't.
since the deceleration rate is constant, who said it's a constant by the way? Deceleration rate d by dt is k into v, depends on the velocity by the way. Rahul, it is not exactly, the rate is constant but not with respect to time. It was not with respect to time which is constant. It was actually with respect to the distance. So the rate actually at which the speed reduces is technically speaking dependent on the velocity itself. You see in this case the actual equation you've got is d by dt with a minus sign equal to k into v. That is the equation you've got. d by dt is the rate at which the speed increases, minus of d by dt is the rate at which the speed decreases. So this is the rate at which the speed decreases, not the x component velocity. Okay. However, as I said earlier, you in this case were able to get the correct answer because this gives rise to the same equation that you were using actually. We notice in this case that if I yes, you multiplied distance, but which distance you have multiplied? You have multiplied the distance on the x-axis. In this case, what distance talking about by the is talking about the distance along the
The
path.
projectile,
They're not the same thing.
the trajectory.
Yes, so the trajectory. That is what you have to do in this case. It actually turns out that in this case, ultimately, even if you do not know along the x equation, the equation turns out to be the same thing. That is why you are safe over there. However, that still doesn't say that your solution is right. Okay, it's one of those cases where you do something wrong and you get the correct answer, or at least you get the correct equation, but without any justification. No problem. It is no trouble. I mean, say, but still, yeah, it's kind of that. But still, let us explore this question a bit over there. This is a very realistic situation I was saying earlier. Normally, the air resistance does play a role, and this is how it acts. Normally, the air resistance force is proportional to the speed, in fact, and that is why it introduces an acceleration which is proportional to the speed. Fine. So this says that the speed reduces at a rate which is actually proportional to the speed. So the faster it is moving, the faster is the reduction speed point of time actually. The slower it moves, the slower is the reduction point of time. Fine, that is what we have over there. Now, what we see in this case is that if you consider the acceleration, there's one way to describe the situation. We have seen earlier in one dimension that the rate at which the speed varies along the path. That was the acceleration. Now, in this case, we have a similar thing. The rate at which the speed reduces is once again the acceleration, but this acceleration is now called a tangential acceleration. Implies only tangent to the path because we know that the velocity is always tangent to the path. So whatever acceleration we have along the path is in fact called a tangential acceleration. Now, if I look at in this case carefully, there's two. Basically, we have gravity as well. Gravity is pointing down. Gravity introduces one of the accelerations, but as you could see in this case, this has no effect along the horizontal direction. If I look at a tiny path over there and look at this region, which is actually a very small distance ds actually. The velocity is pointing that way along the tangent to the path. And as a result of which, this acceleration, which we can call as a tangential acceleration, that is in fact opposite the velocity. That's going to be pointing this way, this in backward direction. That is a tangential acceleration that we have this way, opposite to the path. Let's call it a tangential acceleration. Okay, that is pointing on the opposite the path actually. Now what happens in this case is, if you look at the x component of velocity, I mean, so this will be obviously affected by the acceleration, which is a component is 8 in the backward direction. So the other acceleration that we have is g. G is entirely vertical. This one is only affecting the y velocity. This is not affecting the x velocity over there. That is the direction of g. So that implies if I consider the x component of motion only, the horizontal component, that is along the x-axis, then we see that the acceleration along the x-axis, in fact, is simply a component of 80 in the backward direction. At this moment, if I consider this angle to be theta, which is not the angle which was given the question by the way, but the angle, Alberta, good morning. Yes, this is the angle which is the instantaneous velocity forming with the horizontal. The projection angle, it was given the question as theta, I should call it as some other variable. I just called it as alpha by the way. Okay. The initial situation was that it was projected with a speed which was equal to u and the angle was alpha. There was a cliff somewhere over here. So I want in this case to the cliff, I mean, so this projectile to hit the enemy locations which were sitting right below the cliff over there. So that I need to make sure that by the time it reaches this particular distance, the x velocity has been gone, 0. Then it just falls straight forward, okay? For that case, if I consider the x acceleration, I see that this will be nothing but 80 cos theta, where theta is the instantaneous angle which the velocity vector forms with the horizontal. This is the angle right now actually, okay? But 80 is already minus of kV because 80 is a tangential acceleration. I can take this minus on this side. So I actually get minus k into v cos theta. That becomes a tangential acceleration. It depends on still the, but v cos theta is what? By the v cos theta is simply the projection of v, the speed along the horizontal direction. This gives us technically nothing but minus k into vx. So we have in this case a situation where the acceleration along the x-axis, in fact, is in proportional to the speed along the x-axis with the same constant of proportionality k. Okay, that is what made you safe over there. Anyway, in this case, if I look at this equation, strictly speaking, what exactly we are getting from here, we notice in this case that because the acceleration is same thing as dvx by dt, this gives us in this case the rate at which x velocity changes along the x-axis. We get something like this. However, this I could write down as dvx upon dt upon dx actually. I multiply and divide with dx. So as to say, we get this. dx by dt is how much by that? Dx by dt is nothing but vx, velocity. So along the x-axis, I get in this case dvx upon dx into vx is same thing as minus kvx. So if I just cancel it out, and ultimately we end up getting that the x velocity in fact changes with respect to x at a constant rate, at the same rate with which the speed was changing actually. So that is why you got the required result, Rahul. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, say you obviously fine, nothing to say about it. This one gives us in this case dvx as minus k dx actually, and that gives us effectively that the change in the velocity vx that must be minus kx plus a constant. Some constant has to be added up to make sure that we are getting the correct result. Or you can just apply in this case the fact that because dvx by dx is a constant, so vx must reduce at a constant rate. So I could in fact write down directly that vx is equal to the initial speed, which was u cos 60 degree. The angle projection was 60 degree over there. So u cos 60 degree was u by 2. And then it reduces the fixed rate of minus k. So it has to be equal to u by 2 minus k into x. This is how the x velocity varies, which quite obviously becomes 0 when x is equal to u by 2k in fact. And that is what you have got the answer over there. Okay, that is the point where that should be technically matching the horizontal range itself, so that it might be just minimum. It will have to just go to zero velocity at this point, and therefore it just falls straight forward. And that is why in this case you end up getting the answer as x equal to u by 2k. That gives us 40 by 2 into 0.1, giving us 200 meters. Okay. Last one implies this one, right? Well, we have been given that dvx by dx is minus, which implies the velocity along the x-axis reduces with a fixed rate along as we move along the x-axis. So that is why I utilized if something is changing at a fixed rate, what will happen? It will basically be starting from the initial value and it will decrease uniformly. That is what I've written down. Vx equal to u by 2 minus k, because it was initially u by 2. The initial speed, you notice this angle was actually given to be 60 degree in fact. So the initial velocity on the x-axis becomes u by 2, and then it uniformly reduces with respect to x. So I just utilize the fact that the rate is a constant, so I can obtain the change by multiplying with the rate itself. That is why I have got this equation. Is it okay? Anyway, this is fine enough. Did not understand the calculus part. Which calculus part, by the way? This part. We have been doing this earlier. You forgot that? Then which part? The last. Okay. Shivankar, which portion? In the diagram. Well, in diagram, you see that actually the point is what when we have to describe the motion. When the path is basically curved path, we can describe the acceleration in a different way as well. What I was saying is, whenever you have a vector, when the acceleration in a certain direction, it will definitely affect the speed in that direction. In this case, the acceleration is actually du by dt, which is a minus sign, so retardation technically. That retardation is called a tangential acceleration in this case, okay? It's along a tangent. So that tangent is on the path, that is this way, forget about this ds over there. The velocity is pointing this way, and the acceleration which we have written down over there, which is the acceleration due to the air resistance, it actually is being causing an acceleration in the opposite direction. That is what I have shown in this case. So it is a tangential acceleration pointing in the backward direction over there, backward to the path. Therefore, if I look at the x component of the acceleration over there, in that case, it turns out to be the component of at in this direction, because g has no role in that direction over there. That is why the only possible acceleration is going to be at in that direction, which is giving us x equal to at cos theta. And from there, I use the fact that theta is right now the angle which the velocity forms the x-axis. Someone saying something? Anyway, as far as the answer is concerned, that is okay. We have got this. However, let us try to see what happens.
Sir, So you
Well,
told now that the small part as ds, that part not understood, means you have taken the small part of the path and then you have taken that ds.
yeah. The question was saying that the speed decreases per unit meter by a rate of 0.1 meter per second, which implies what we've given is the rate at which speed decreases with along the distance. That is what we have been given actually. This is what we're given. The rate of change of speed with respect to distance. And distance will be in which direction, by the way? It will be obviously along the path. Isn't that's why I just took a very small distance that's traveled, during which time the speed changes by dv amount. That is what the meaning of differential is. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Simply just say that okay, the rate of change of v with respect to distance is equal to minus k. That the usually write down a rate of change of distance with respect to time. That is nothing but ds by dt. That is what we have utilized in this case, the idea. So we get in this case d by ds as minus k effectively. Okay. Anyway, what I was saying is along the y direction, that things are not as simple, by the way. And by the way, even on the x-axis, what do you think will be the variation of speed with respect to time? Because the variation of speed with respect to distance is linear, but does it mean that it will have to be same with respect to time? In fact, if I look at the rate of change of the distance, or the velocity, x velocity, with respect to time, then we have a problem. In fact, it turns out that then we have to solve this equation, which we have been given over here, dvx by dt equal to minus kv. It basically is not very difficult. It's saying that with respect to time, vx is certain function whose derivative is proportional to that function, by the way. Now, do you know any such functions which, when differentiated, will give us a function which is similar for the same function multiplied by some constant? Do you know of such a function, by the way? We have looked at differential calculus. So can you think of an example of such a function which, when we differentiate it, gives back the same function which is multiplied with some constant? Do you know of such any such functions? Anyone? Do you know of any such functions which, when differentiated? Exactly. The exponential is what we have over there. Yeah, but it will be in this case e raised power t in this case. Yes, so the exponential function, this property that could differentiate it with respect to the argument, it is the function itself. Exactly. So this equation, if I consider this one over here, it is saying exactly that. It is saying that if I differentiate Vx with respect to t, I am going to get back a quantity which is proportional to Vx itself, which implies quite obvious that Vx needs to be an exponential in this case. So in fact, it gives us Vx as some constant into e raised power minus kt. You can see in this case, if I differentiate Vx with respect to t, I get actually minus k into Vx itself. So see, if I differentiate Vx with respect to time, a is just a constant. So if we differentiate this, utilize the chain rule, I get e power minus kt into minus k, which is what we have over there. So this is the required equation I'm looking for. But what about a? A is a constant, and that constant I can figure it out by looking at the initial value. Okay, the initial point, or the initial expression is, or the initial velocity along the x-axis, nothing but u by 2 actually. So for t equal to 0, Vx must be u by 2. So t equal to 0 becomes, this becomes 1. I get a equal to u by 2, which implies this a is in fact u by 2, the initial speed in that direction. So ultimately we get Vx to be e raised power minus kt. That's what Vx is. So the x velocity actually decreases to 0 by x equal to 200 meters, but it does so very, very slowly. In fact, strictly speaking, or theoretically speaking, the time taken for Vx to go to 0 is infinite. In fact, the time that velocity takes to go to 0 is infinitely large. Quite obviously, in a practical situation, that is not so. The behavior of the exponential is, quite weird. The fact is, it will decrease very fast. Okay, so though, how is u by 2? It was u cos 60 degree in Labrata. The initial angle was alpha 60 degrees, so u cos 60 is what I'm looking for. U cos 60 is how much? U by 2. Okay. If on the other hand, if I consider the y displacement, it is not as simple, by the way, because in the y direction, there's actually one of the accelerations called g, obviously, but the other will also have a component of 80 in the backward, downward direction. So actually, the net acceleration along the y direction turns out to be minus g minus 80 sine theta actually, which gives rise to minus g minus k into vy. That is what the equation turns out to be. We will not solve it, by the way, but I solved it earlier, and I actually end up getting the value of Vy as well and Vx as well. I mean, Vx is this one, so once I get the x velocity, I can actually find how does x vary with respect to time, isn't it? I can do that. In this case, that will simply matter of integration over there. Turns out in this case that if I figure out a displacement or position on the x-axis, it's turning out to be something like u by 2k into 1 minus e raised power minus kt. That is how the position changes along the x-axis. Okay. That one I just put t equal to 0, I said that when t was 0, Vx was what? The initial x velocity was how much? It was u cos 60, u by 2. So what I did was, I basically, in this case, put or use this information that since at p equal to 0, Vx is u by 2. I put it in this equation to get u by 2 equal to a. That is what I have done. Okay. E raised power 0 is 1. So that is what I have done over there. And then replace that back over this equation. Okay. So, no, Rishabh, in this case, this sum cannot be done by calculus. At least some initial idea is required. And to solve it fully, we require the full power of calculus. Okay. I said this is a complicated problem because the air resistance is the, once you have justified that, okay, the rate at which the x velocity also changes with the same rate, you can naively multiply it by k, but that is not exactly correct, okay? Which, say, this part we're talking about, the last one? Or talking about this part? Or this part, which one I'm talking about? Arkadev? This one. No, well, actually, we knew of a property of the exponential. That is what I did. But otherwise, we have to integrate it up. Otherwise, we have to integrate this equation over there. This equation has to be integrated. You have to just bring this Vx down, dt on that way. This can be obtained from here. We get something like dvx upon Vx equal to minus k dt. And now I perform the integral on both the sides. On the left side, I integrate from Vx varying from u by 2 to some Vx. And the right side, it will become nothing but minus kt. In this case, I have to integrate this one when x varies from u by 2 to some Vx. And this side, 0 to some t. And you know that dx by x, the integral is log x, isn't it? This will give us essentially log of, after plugging the limits, Vx upon u by 2. This must be minus kt, and therefore Vx by u upon 2 turns out to be e raised power minus kt, and that is why we get Vx equal to u by 2 into e power minus kt. Fine. That is what we had to actually solve it. But actually, the exponential is the only function that is property. That if we differentiate that, we end up getting proportional to the same function. Okay, this is actually property of only the exponential. The last line, this one, right? Well, actually, I integrated Vx to get this one over there. Okay, it's a simple matter of integration. This entire thing, e power minus kt. If you integrate, what do you get? Can you just tell me that? Can you tell me what the integration of e power minus kt will be? E power minus kt, the integral is going to be how much by the respect to time? Can you tell me that? No problem, forget about that. Anyway, the point is that we can actually obtain the x, the displacement of x axis by actually integrating this one. Okay. Yeah, it is that. No, it will be divided by the way on it. When you differentiate, then you multiply, but when you integrate, you have to divide it by. Okay. E raised for mx by mx is what by m is what we have. That is where this factor of k is coming up actually. Not by t, Shubham, it will be e power kt by k only. By minus k rather. E power kt by minus k is what we have. And then you just put the limits 0 to some t. At t equal to 0, yes, t is a variable, so we cannot divide by that. E power minus kt by minus k is what we get. And at t equal, say if you just put the limits 0 to t, you get actually 1 minus e power minus kt by k. That is what we have written down over there. And you forget about how it is coming by the way. Along the y direction, it turns out to be more complicated. In fact, along the y direction, it turns out to be more complicated. I will not derive this result, but let me just write it down. In this particular case, it turns out that along the y direction, if I consider, first of all, the acceleration along the y direction is turning out to be minus g minus 80 sine theta, which gives us k into vy. This is what I get actually in this situation. This is a fact that we're getting over here along y direction. It becomes more complicated. This will give us a velocity along the y direction vy, which was turning out to be. Let me remember what it was. It was well, how much was that, by the way? I forgot some. So I just derived the entire expression, but I wait. I can be done. T multiply g by k into possibly it will be this, in fact. Yeah, that is what turns out as Vy. At t equal to 0, it is turning out to be g by k. Well, it should be 0 actually. Initial it is. Okay, that's what we have effectively. Forget about how we obtain this, but this is the result for the y velocity actually. That is what it turns out to be. And when I obtain the y position, the y displacement, that is turning out to be even more complicated. It becomes g by 2k into t minus this was not g by 2k. Let me see. I wrote that down over there, so I will just not derive it, but just give it. Maybe the derivation will just tell you later. Just hold a moment. I actually ended up simulating the question. I mean, say animating the path where how it might be. So just wait. What's happening? It's not opening. Why not? It is coming. Okay, that is turning out to be something very, very complicated. It's minus g by k minus sine d minus g. Hold a moment. What it was? T minus 10. 10 was what? Okay, fine, forget it. It turns out to be quite bad expression, by the way. I can obtain this for integrating, but let's not do it. Instead of looking at that, let me just show you how the path actually looks like, by the way. And this is a very, very, I mean, say the path. What I did was I figure out in this case y by integrating this factor over there, and you notice that x is also known as function of t, and y will be also known as a function of t. I'm getting a big expression over there. I don't remember exactly what I did. But both the expressions are known in terms of time. So as usual, I can eliminate the t parameter to get the path. But this time the elimination is not going to be easy. So instead what we do is I simply plot it parametrically. Okay, it turns out that if I just plot the path, let us see in this case for this particular question. Let me share you the screen so you can see how exactly the path looks like, by the way. It is a path which looks very close to a parabola initially, but later on it no longer remains a parabola actually. So let me just share the screen. Can you see the screen, by the way? I have shared a GeoGebra.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now I have already written down last time. Yesterday I actually did the calculations, and I'm just plotting in this case the path which was taken by A. If I just animate it, that is how it looks like. It just goes and now it comes down. You see, it's very close to a parabola seemingly. That's what you have. I've just plotted for only 15 seconds. Turns out the time that it requires is in fact only again. That is the path that we have in this case. You see, by that particular it just went away. In this case, the horizontal displacement will be near about 200 over there, which I have not yet completely done because I said already this will be achieved only when t approaches infinity, which is theoretical aspect over there. But as you could see in this case, the path over here is quite close to a parabola. In fact, it looks very similar to a parabola. It is not, however. It is actually a path which is made up of exponentials over there. I mean, it is path which gives rise to an exponential variation in the velocity over there. Okay. Anyway, that is what we have. The question was interesting, but the answer is obviously 200 meters, and that could have been obtained by what we did earlier, but it was only a bit wrong. That's all. Anyway, that's okay that we have enough of this question. However, you remember that this is a more realistic situation because it takes into account the air resistance as well, and that makes it more complicated as well. Anyway, let me just share this. Okay, I stop the sharing part. Yes. Coming back to what we have been. I think the grasshopper question. Have you tried it? Did you try it? The grasshopper question. Okay, let's give it some more time. Let's take it on Monday. Okay. I just wanted to do something else slightly, some more things before we. Have you any of you tried that, the grasshopper question? Real becomes complicated, easy becomes virtual. Exactly, that's what there is a compromise that you have to have. No, Shubhankar, there's no easy way out. That's the easiest way I've talked about that. Okay. There has to be, if you just, you see that whenever we study real things, there obviously is going to be problems. Okay, point is, it'll be there. That is why we first make a model of it. We can just remove some of the real factors affecting the motion. Only then it becomes mathematically more simple. Otherwise, you can simply speculate. Okay, this is going to happen over there. Anyway. So let us do one thing. I will just, as far as the grasshopper problem is concerned, I will do it on Monday, okay? Let me just give you some more time if you want to try it. Otherwise, I'll just do it on Monday. I just want to take up some slightly, the projectiles which we can analyze on an inclined surface as well, okay? Normally, sometimes becomes useful to think of the projectile along an inclined direction. Say, for example, that is a hill which is inclined at some angle, say beta, with respect to the horizontal, and a particle is projected with respect to the inclination at certain angle alpha with a speed which is u by 2. Rather, u, not u by 2. That question stuck in my head. U, okay. The topic is projectiles, by the way. Shivankar. There's projectiles on the inclined plane. And why do you have to look at the topic, by the way? Whatever we do, does it have to be categorized into some topic? Okay, it becomes an easy, or what?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay, no problem. The idea in this case is what? In fact, you see the entire analysis process proceeds in exactly the same way. We just have to change our coordinate system. Okay. Now, whenever such a situation arises, when we deal with projectiles along the inclined plane, it is useful to consider the coordinate system in such a way that one the axis runs along the inclined surface, the other one is perpendicular. That is the one which is useful in this case to consider when we deal with projectiles along an inclined surface. We have taken up a coordinate system in which the x-axis runs parallel to the inclined surface, while the y-axis runs perpendicular to that. Now, once we do this kind of transformations, obviously what happens is the acceleration will now have to be written down in both directions. If you notice that the only acceleration that we have over here is neglecting the air resistance, just the acceleration due to gravity g, but that is pointing neither along the x-axis nor on the y-axis. So what I would like to do in this case is to break it up into components parallel to the two coordinate systems, coordinate axis. So that in this case, if I consider the components in this direction and this direction, that implies perpendicular and parallel to the inclined surface over there. What we see then is this part over here is the component perpendicular to the y, parallel to the y-axis, and this will become parallel to the x-axis. We see in this case that if I consider this angle to be beta, this is vertical, so this is 90 degrees, that is 90 minus beta, that is 90 minus beta as well, that is 90 degrees, so this becomes nothing but beta. That angle is therefore beta as well. Okay, once we know that this angle is beta, I could write down, break this g into components. One component is this way, the other component is that way. Both of them are opposite our coordinates directions over there. So that we could write down the acceleration along the x-axis in our case as simply this one, which is g sine beta, but negative sign actually. We get minus g sine beta. That is the acceleration, which is this part over there. There's a perpendicular. Therefore, this is 90 degrees technically. That implies in this case that we have the altitude is I'm looking for, that is nothing but g sine beta, but it's a minus sign because we're considering the x-axis running upwards, but this is pointing downwards. Okay, so ax becomes minus g sine beta, while ay, the acceleration along the y direction, will be simply this component that becomes minus g cos beta. So we now have a situation where we have accelerations along both the directions, but the good thing is that both these accelerations are actually constants. You notice that g sine beta, because the inclined surface is at a fixed angle, so we get g sine beta as an acceleration along the x-axis and g cos beta as the acceleration along the y-axis. Both of them are constant and with a minus sign. So we could write down the x velocity and y velocity as well. Before doing that, we just project the velocity, that is u, into two components. The component parallel to the x-axis becomes u cos alpha, and the component parallel to the y-axis, that becomes u sine alpha. So these two components are going to be for the initial velocities. This part becomes u cos alpha, this part becomes u sine alpha. And once we know these two components, I can now write in the corresponding equations along the x and the y direction for the velocity. But because in this case the accelerations are constant, I can utilize the equations with constant acceleration, v equal to u plus at, and displacement equal to ut plus half at square. That those two equations over there. If I use them, I get in this case vx, the x velocity is the initial velocity in that direction, which is u cos alpha, minus at, but at becomes in this case g sine beta into the time t. That is what we have. Vx equal to u cos alpha minus g sine beta into t. What about Vy? Vy will turn out to be u sine alpha minus g cos beta into t. In this case, the x and y both velocity, they will decrease with respect to time. And finally, the displacement, because the initial position is the origin itself, so displacement and the position, they are the same thing. Therefore, I could write down in this case, if I wanted the x component of the motion, x is going to be what? It's going to be ut plus half at square. That equation I'm going to use. U in this case is u cos alpha. So I get u cos alpha into t minus half g sine beta into t square. That is our x component of the motion, or rather the x coordinate. the y coordinate becomes u sine alpha into t minus half g cos beta into t square. Okay, so we have in this case the x and the y coordinate of the particle known as a function of time. They're both quadratically changing. And the question, what about the path, by the way? What do you think about the path? The path will be, what about the trajectory? Can you tell me? Anyone? What the path will be? Ay should be g sine beta. No, that's not okay. Ay is this acceleration, which is the component of g in this direction. This is angle beta, so I get g cos beta over there. And that is what we have. Parabola type on it. It will be a parabola. You see, the projectile doesn't know. No, it won't be parabola along the incline. It will be the same vertical parabola if you throw the object from the ground. The particle does not know about anything about the inclined plane, by the way, unless until you strikes it. So the particle will still follow the same parabolic path had it projected from the ground, but the angle would have been alpha plus beta. It doesn't know about the inclined plane as long as it is in the air. It comes to know about that inclined plane only when it strikes it over there. Therefore, the path will exactly the same that would have been followed on the ground. In fact, had the angle projection been alpha plus beta. So the path will be definitely a parabola itself. It will just simply go as a usual way. It will simply go in this fashion and then it would happen like this. It so happens that before it can go down, it strikes the inclined surface. But that will be still a parabola and it will not be. You have taken the x-axis as a base. Base of what, by the way? That is the x-axis along the inclined surface, not the base.
No, sir. That's why you have taken the ay as minus g cos beta, though. That's only taken.
That is okay. Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Achha.
Okay. X and this one is the altitude, by the way. I mean, the x-axis is actually perpendicular the altitude. Yes, Shivam, for this particular parabola, the angle projection from the ground would be definitely alpha plus beta. But the point is, as far as the particle is concerned, it doesn't know about this inclined plane unless until it strikes over there. That is why it hardly makes a difference. Okay. As far as the parabola is concerned, the path is concerned, the equations have changed. The equation in this system will be parametrically like this, will be difficult to eliminate t in this case. But nevertheless, the path will still be the same parabola over there, which had been thrown from the ground at angle of alpha plus beta. Okay. Anyway, we have got the corresponding x and the y components of motion over there. Now what? Now you can figure out in this case whatever time of flight. The time of flight can be obtained. You notice in this case that by the time it reaches back to the inclined surface, once again, what happens? The y coordinate turns out to be 0. Once it reaches back to this particular inclined surface at this point, the y coordinate turns out to be 0, which implies I can find a time by setting y equal to 0. If I put y equal to 0, the time of flight above the inclined surface, this can be obtained by setting y equal to 0. I put y equal to 0 and that will give us, this equation will give us u sine alpha into t minus half g cos beta into t square equal to 0. Get rid of this part over there. This will obviously imply I can just pull out t common. So what we get is t into u sine alpha minus g by 2 cos beta into t equal to 0. And that gives us over here time either 0, which implies the initial point, or t equal to 2u sine alpha by g cos beta. So we find this here time of flight, therefore the other one, this one is just initial moment of projections. This must be therefore the time of flight, which I notice is very similar to the formula of time of flight on a horizontal plane, above the horizontal plane. Only thing what has been coming over difference is that we have replaced g with g cos beta alpha. That's what the only thing that we have done in this case. Otherwise, it remains the same expression that we have got earlier. Anyways, this becomes a time of flight, and once I know the time of flight, the range along the inclined surface can be obtained by putting this value of t and finding out what is the x coordinate at that point of time, isn't it? So the range along the inclined surface can be therefore obtained by finding out the x coordinate at this particular t, and that we can do by putting it in the corresponding x equation that we have. So if I look at the range along the inclined plane, range along the inclined plane. For that case, I said this will be nothing but the x coordinate at the time capital T. This will be same thing as x at t equal to capital T. So we just put this value of capital T over there in the equation of the x coordinate, which I wrote down a bit earlier. I'll have to in this case write down then becomes u cos alpha into the time capital T minus half g sine beta into t square. That is what I have to do. Where capital T is this value 2u sine alpha by g cos beta. If I put it up in this one, that gives us in this case u cos alpha into twice u sine alpha by g cos beta minus half into g sine beta into t square becomes 4u square into sine square alpha divided by g square cos square beta. That is what we have. We can just simplify it a bit. First of all, this 2 can be cancelled out, give us 2u square over there. Over there also we have 2u square coming up. What I do in this case is I just pull out 2u square, and then sine alpha is present in both the cases over there. So 2u square sine alpha. The denominator I just pull g cos square beta outside. Okay, I just pull out. You can see that one g will cancel over there as well. So it becomes g cos square beta in that case. So I'm just going to pull that out. G cos square beta, I have just pulled out of the both the quantities, both the terms. What I'm left with over here, u square has been pulled out, 2 has been pulled out, sine alpha has been pulled out as well. But there was cos beta. I wanted cos square beta, so I have to multiply and divide by cos beta. So I end up getting in this case cos alpha into cos beta. That is the first term. The second term, what we have been pulled out. 2u square is gone, sine alpha is gone, g cos square beta is gone. So what is left is sine beta into sine alpha. So I get in this case minus sine alpha into sine beta. That is what I have got. This becomes essentially, I can simplify it up to end up getting. We notice that this one is simply cos alpha cos beta minus sine alpha sine beta. That is simply g raised for x.
Cos alpha plus beta. Sin alpha plus beta.
Where I wrote down g raised for x, by the way? No, this was g square. It was g square, and then I cancel it out. That is why it becomes. Yeah, so it becomes 2u square sine alpha cos of alpha plus beta divided by g cos square beta, isn't it? So I get twice u square sine alpha into cos alpha plus beta divided by g cos square of beta. That is what we have as the range along the inclined plane. It is very close to the horizontal range, by the way. The only thing that we are getting over here is that one of the cos alpha is replaced by cos alpha plus beta, and g has been replaced by g cos square beta. Actually, that's the only difference that we have in this case. isn't it? Otherwise, it is very similar to that, but it changed a lot of things. First of all, if I now want to figure out, say, for example, the maximum possible range along the inclined plane, what to do then, by the way? How to figure out the maximum t by 2? No, that is not okay, Labrata. It is not exactly a symmetrical motion. You can't simply obtain the maximum range by putting the value of t as t by 2 in that equation. That can't be done. This is not exactly a symmetrical motion. Okay. Yes, Shubham, you can leave. In normal cases, because in this case the symmetry of the parabola is not this way, it is still the same line, the vertical that is about which it is symmetrical. So you cannot simply do that. Okay. In the case, and why do you put t by? I'm not talking about maximum height, by the way. I'm talking about the maximum range around the inclined surface, not the height. In any case, the maximum height above the inclined surface will be obviously obtained when I just take up a tangent. When the velocity, in this case, I'll have to make sure that the y velocity vanishes. Actually, that's the point where I'm going to have the maximum range. I need to make sure maximum height. If I wanted to have the maximum height above the inclined plane, I'll just find a time by putting Vy equal to 0. That will be the, that's good. Obviously, in this case, the beta angle is fixed by the beta cannot change. What can change is the angle alpha. So I would like to, in this case, vary alpha and then see what might be the maximum possible value that. Alpha is max, not alpha is max. I require in this case that sine alpha into cos alpha plus beta. That should be the maximum over there. We can do it this way. If we just look back at the range once again, so the range is that formula. So we utilize the formula for 2 sine A sine B. What is that? Well, I'm going to consider this case the formula 2 sine A cos B. 2 sine A cos B is what? That is nothing but sine A plus B plus sine A minus B. So I'm going to utilize this formula. There's 2 present. There's sine alpha and there's cos alpha plus beta. So I'm going to use 2 sine alpha cos alpha plus beta. Rest of the thing I'm just writing as they are. U square by G cos square beta. And then 2 sine alpha cos alpha plus beta. That reduces to sine of alpha plus beta. And then sine of alpha minus beta, that becomes minus of sine alpha, actually. Sine beta. That is I've got. Okay. B square by 2g. So in this case, if I consider this one, I notice that the other term is just a fixed quantity. This gives us u square by g cos square beta into sine 2 alpha plus beta minus sine beta. Now you see in this case that we have only one quantity which can be varied. This is already coming up a constant. Sine beta is a fixed value because the incline is fixed. So I have only this part which is a variable. I need to make sure this is the maximum over there. So that can only happen if sine of 2 alpha plus beta becomes 90 degrees. Yeah, that's correct. So I can obtain therefore the R max as u square by g cos square beta. This part becomes 1, so I get 1 minus sine beta, which we can simplify because cos square beta is 1 minus sine square beta. I can factorize 1 minus sine beta into 1 plus sine beta. This will be giving us in this case u square by g into 1 minus sine beta into 1 plus sine beta. And in numerator we have 1 minus sine beta. So that cancels out and we finally are left with the max possible range along the inclined surface as u square by g into 1 plus sine beta. As you could see, if I put beta equal to 0, it will bring us back to the horizontal incline, horizontal plane. In which case, this part will be going to get u square by g, what we expect over there. Okay. Otherwise, this becomes a maximum possible range along the inclined surface. But when it has been thrown in the upward direction, actually, if I throw it instead down from a certain point, if I just throw from a certain point in a downward direction, it can be obtained by simply replacing beta with minus beta, and then the maximum range will become u square by g into 1 minus sine beta. Okay, if it is thrown in downward direction, the time of flight will remain unchanged, but the range downwards will become maximum range. Will become we can obtain by putting beta equal to minus beta. In fact, okay. You see in this case that this maximum range will be attained when 2 alpha plus beta is 90 degrees, which implies alpha becomes how much better? In this case, once again, if I look at the maximum range will be attained max range will be obtained when 2 alpha plus beta becomes 90 degrees, which implies that if you throw from the top, what will be the path? The path will be still a parabola on it. The path will be always a parabola, as long as there's a uniform acceleration in one direction, and your path, you are not throwing exactly in that direction. In all other cases, you will get a parabolic path over there. Okay. It is something like you are throwing it from top of a tower, by the way. What is the path? Let's say from top of a tower, that was still a parabolic path. Same thing in this case as well. Only thing that before striking the ground, it will just strike the inclined surface. Anyway, in this case, this is the situation. This is the giving us a condition for the maximum range, which I could actually write down from here. Alpha turns out to be 2 alpha is pi by 2 minus beta. Therefore, the angle alpha is nothing but pi by 4 minus beta by 2. That is the angle I must throw if I want to attain the maximum range. And notice in this case, now significant this particular angle. You notice what? If I consider the vertical direction implying this, not the y-axis, but the vertical. That is the vertical direction. Okay, so with respect to the we have this vertical and we have the inclined. How much is the angle between them, by this? The angle between them, this angle over here, is how much? That is nothing but pi by 2 minus beta. That is what is this angle, pi by 2 minus beta. So, if I want the range to be maximum, I need to throw it along the angle, which is actually the perpendicular, so the angle bisector of this angle actually. If I just throw it along this angle bisector, let's throw the projectile along the angle bisector. This is bisecting, so these two angles are equal actually. If I throw it in this direction, only then the range is going to maximum. This was also happening when we have the projectile on the horizontal plane. Even in that case, the range was maximum at 45 degrees, which was nothing but the bisector of the angle between ground and the vertical. In this case, also the same thing happening. Only the ground is no longer now horizontal. The ground is like this way. So it is still happening that the maximum range is going to be attained when the angle of projection is bisecting the angle between the vertical and the inclined surface. Okay, that always happens effectively. So there's a bit of relation in this case. We are going to get the maximum possible range when the angle of projection is along the angle bisector of the angle between the two, the inclined surface and the plane. Not only that, it turns out that very similar to what we had earlier in case of projectile on the horizontal plane, we saw that when we just throw it at two angles which are complementary angles, the ranges were equal. In this, that also can be translated as the fact that whenever the projectiles are projected along directions which are equally inclined to the maximum range direction, even then the ranges are equal actually. That happens to be in this case as well. If I throw it in this case in two directions which are effectively equally inclined to the maximum range direction, in that case the ranges are going to be same thing over there. Why does it not happen through it from height? It does happen, by the way. Only thing that you have to choose, say the range along the inclined over there. We'll all, for example, if I'm throwing it from top of a tower, I must consider the, inclined plane. But the point over there is there was no inclined plane to begin with. Okay, it was only happening when it strikes the ground. So in some way, I'm actually trying to look at a direction where the inclined range is as large as possible. Ryan, the last sentence I said was, when we throw projectiles along directions that are equally inclined to the maximum range direction, the ranges are equal as well. Meaning, in case of ground, it was with respect to 45-degree line, equal on the two sides. In this case, with respect to the angle bisector of the angle between the vertical and inclined, that was the direction of maximum range. So with respect to that, if I throw two projectiles at equal inclination, one is inclined upwards, one is downwards. For these two, the ranges will be same actually. The ranges will be exactly the same. It will be coming out to be this way and it will be this way. It will be same range in fact, okay, around the inclined surface. It always happens. That was happening for the case of horizontal projectile. It's also happening for the case of the projectiles on the inclined range, inclined plane actually. Okay. A very general situation, this is what we have over there. So that is what we have regarding the projectiles along the inclined surface. The range formula changes slightly, but the maximum range we can now see is essentially u square by g into 1 plus sine beta. And the time of flight could be obtained simply by setting up instead of g cos beta. Okay, that is what the difference that we have over there. Apart from there, the analysis remains the same. Okay, fine. So that will be all for the projectiles for the moment. Before, however, there is one question to take up before we finish today. The question says that when we just throw a projectile along an inclined surface, it so happens that strikes the inclined plane normally, perpendicularly, basically. So let me answer the question. Yeah. The question, can write down the question by the way? Should I just dictate? Repeat, I have not said any time the question by the way. Okay, the question says, a particle is projected at an angle alpha with the horizontal. Remember that it's a horizontal actually. So particle is projected at an angle alpha with respect to the horizontal from the foot of a plane whose inclination to the horizontal is beta. Okay, a particle is projected at an angle alpha with respect to the horizontal from the foot of a plane which is inclined to the horizontal at an angle beta. If the particle strikes the inclined plane at right angles, if the particle strikes the plane at right angles, we need to show that no, velocity is not given. We need to prove that cot of beta is equal to 2 into tan of alpha minus beta. This is what we have to prove. Remember that in this case, the angle alpha was with respect to the horizontal value, not with respect to inclined. The angle alpha was with respect to the horizontal. The speed is not given. if the particle strikes the inclined plane at right angles. If the particle, Aviprata, yes, relative velocity we have discussed. You have any specific problem? You have not done it, I mean, even once? I can, okay, fine, let me see. I can just send you the recordings that you can see once and then we can talk about any problem that you have. Okay, will that be fine? Okay. Shivankar, you written down the question? The particle strikes
Yes,
the
sir.
right. Okay, fine. Right angle, you have to prove this part over there. But I was saying in this case, the angle alpha was in this case with respect to the horizontal, not the inclined plane. Okay, remember that.
Sir,
हाँ बोलो.
sir, can you tell that part that horizontal throwing and vertical throwing means when we call when we project any body, so then the horizontal velocity and the vertical velocity. Can you tell that?
Any, I mean, inclined plane or
No, it's normal one.
normally the x velocity remains a constant, u cos alpha, and the y velocity varies as u sin alpha minus gt.
Yes, sir. When we throw any body from a height, from any height, so then that velocity is called the horizontal velocity, though.
What? Horizontal velocity is a velocity component parallel to the ground. Not when you throw something from a height. Even if you throw something from a height, it can still have x and y velocity.
Yes, sir. Then, sir, y velocity is y velocity. The initial velocity is 0, though.
Why? That is only happening if you throw it parallel to the ground.
You see, that's only telling.
You said from a height.
Ye-
From height, you can throw it in different directions as well.
Acha.
Okay. Done, Rahul. Okay. What did you do? In effect, figured out the at the time of flight, the x velocity must vanish, isn't it? That's what we have. But in this case, you must remember the angle alpha has changed. Actually, the angle alpha is now measured with respect to the horizontal. Very hazy. My screen is not. You are the. I mean, say your screen is. You see.
No, sir, it's clear, sir.
Yeah, that is what happens. I already said that you are not taking the video directly from me. You are actually taking it from the Google server. So, I mean, if my speed is slow, or if I have a problem, then everybody get a, I mean, hazy screen. But otherwise, it will be your connection. Don't worry, it will become clear in a moment. It's just a fluctuation in the internet connection. Riktam done. Okay. In that case, that can be. I mean, if you are done, we can just finish today. I'll just send over a couple of questions that you could try.
Sir,
हाँ बोलो.
sir, I have asked now that one question. Sir, a question is asking that a projectile is fired horizontally with a velocity of 98 meter per second from the top of a hill 490 meter high. Sir, here it's telling that a projectile is fired horizontally means parallel to the ground. So,
Yes, yes. Horizontal is always parallel to the ground. Vertical is in the direction of gravity. Horizontal is parallel. Yes, Anushka, it is a book by S.L. Loney. Okay, it's a dynamics book by S.L. Loney. This one it is. Obviously, the print will be different over there. Can you give me a hint? Onik, I said you just figure out in this case the at the time of flight the x velocity must vanish because it's striking the inclined surface perpendicularly, which implies when it reaches over here, the x velocity must vanish. Okay. So what you do is basically you find a time of flight, but time of flight was what? It was nothing but twice u. In the actual thing, we wrote down sine alpha, but that alpha was the angle with respect to incline. So in this case, that angle is alpha minus beta actually. We get 2 sine alpha minus beta. This was upon g cos beta. This was the time of flight actually. As I said already, I need to change the angle alpha by alpha minus beta. This is time of flight. So what I do is I just make sure that this particular instant, the x velocity should be 0. Okay. If you make the x velocity 0 at this particular instant, you get the required result. Done? Okay, fine. Okay, there's some numericals. Yeah, it is one line sum actually. Onik, if you know that part. I'm sending some questions. Just dealing with numericals over there. I'll send some more later on, but for the moment, just for today's things.
Sir, from SLUNI?
Yes, you have this book?
No, sir, I just downloaded it.
Yeah, Dynamics, isn't it? It is easily available. You can just get from the archive.org actually if you wish. But anywhere else can be given as well. If you have already, okay, can you just, I don't know which version you have downloaded by the way. So it will be easier to take up a snapshot of this, not from the phone, but you see that original, the old books might not have in this case SI units over there. Okay. Can we open up a chapter on projectiles by the way? Can you do that?
Yes, sir, I'm doing it. So can you tell the page number?
That might not be the same actually. In my book, the page number is 138.
So wait.
In this book, I do not know which version you have downloaded, so it will be different. It's an old book, so many versions are available actually. Many reprints. The exercise 18 is what we want actually. Again, in this book over there, not. If you can just share what we have, then I can maybe tell. Are you doing it on a computer or a mobile phone?
Sir, computer.
Can you share the screen? Yes, Anushka, you can leave. I mean, as I just post the questions in the WhatsApp group. Okay.
Sir, I'm doing it. Sharing
Okay,
it.
fine. So hard there. We have to find where it is. Yes. Okay, it is the old book. We are looking from the archive.org, isn't it? Yes. Just don't do it very fast, but I cannot see the page number. It is quite small. Okay, it will be after that. After that. Actually, it is statics part you're looking at, by the way. This is statics part. We'll go to dynamics part, the second part of it. I'm saying later on, much later. This is statics part we are looking at. You see on the left side, top page is written statics. Go to dynamics part. Yeah, after that it will be dynamics part. I just finished or what? Oh, you have just downloaded the statics part, by the way.
Yes, sir.
They require the dynamics part. Okay, no problem. I'll just take up a snapshot. I also had this book downloaded sometime back, but it is not in the laptop, but it is in a desktop. So no problem. Let me just take up a snapshot, or if you can, yes, let's see which one. Treatise on Dynamics, that's an old book over there. Statics and Dynamics by S.L. Loney is what we require. The second part. Oh, I can't scroll your screen, by the way. I try to scroll, but I cannot. Anik, you have? Yeah, done. Okay, fine. Okay, Anik, you can present as well. Let us see what have you got. See, let Anik share the screen. See what he is presenting by the way. Anik, are you doing it? Yes. Okay. Can you just minimize the side, cross the side screen? It'll become a bit bigger. It is so small a font.
Just zoom it, sir. Tell him to zoom it.
I can't zoom it.
Sir, tell him.
On a laptop, I cannot do that. Okay, this is still showing the preface. You have to go ahead. How many pages? 230, 282. It's more or less like that. Go to page. It is dynamics here. Go ahead. Go to page number 130 something. No, not that, Shubhankar. You actually are trying to look at the ebook that's not required. You can head to archive.org and you can find many old books quite. Yes, this is a portion, by the way. We need to just just the next page, and there's exercise coming up. That what you're seeing, the exercise, the example 18 is what we're looking for. Just after the diagram page. No, it was way back, the previous page. Previous page. Yeah, the right side. Again, the same thing. This part, the right page. Oh, what are you doing? I mean, it will be say it is actually the two pages have been scanned simultaneously. So to say the previous page, whatever you want, and you can see the right side, the right part over there. Can you read the first question on it? What is written? It is archive.org. Archive.org. You have to search a bit, by the way. It contains a lot of old books. Archive.org. That is the website name. No. You just read the first line. That'll be clear. That'll make it clear. I could have just.
So I will read the first line.
The first line of the first question.
The plane is inclined at 30 degrees to the horizon.
That is the one I want. This one. So take a snapshot on the right side, the exercise. Take a snapshot and just crop it and post in the WhatsApp group. Okay. Just first magnify it a bit better. Yeah, there's a zoom in the right side over there. You can see the right side bottom. There's a zoom button over there. Magnify button. Not happening. Okay, wait. I will do that. Okay, I mean, say at least the class is officially over. So if you wish, you can leave, and at least let me finish the recording part.